everyday witches emerge from the shadows of secrecy. Broom closets are flinging open and witches are taking flight. Whether you are hiding in your cozy closet or flying with pride, stay for a spell as Witchcasting with Theodora Pendragon and her guests share magical moments, stir the cauldron, and debunk misinformation and misconceptions about paganism, witches, and our wonderful world of magic.
Welcome back, everyone. My special guest today is Lilli Bewley. She's a dating coach for finding love, and we're going to talk about creating magnetic energy among many other things. Welcome, Lilli.
Thank you, Theodora. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
You know, this affects almost everybody, wouldn't you say? Finding love?
I think so. Whether people want to admit that or not is the question. But I do, from my experience, the deep level of love I think that we want in our lives, I think it transfers over to relationships and our relationship with money, our relationship with our businesses, really anything that we want to be, I think, purposeful or co-create, in our lives. I think it's definitely a theme for sure.
Tell us a little bit about your coaching and what that entails.
Yeah, thank you. Well, once again, thank you so much for having me. My coaching kind of follows the journey of my development, of the healing that I had to do inside of myself. Not that I had to do, but I selected to do because I was just so tired of repeating the same patterns again and again and again, especially when it comes to love and relationships. My coaching is really about healing the really root cause reasons for why a particular woman sees a particular pattern in her life when it comes to dating and relationship. And again, a lot of the women that I work with are like me, which a little bit of background about me is that I always like to say that I was born with a big open heart. I'm loving, I'm caring, I'm kind. But I was in a situation in my childhood where I was modeled a very unhealthy relationship. That was the first thing that kind of, started to influence the way that I approached, I guess, dating and love. So I was modeled this submissive, dominant, thing in the relationship that I was modeled. Also, I grew up in an environment where I was, there was abuse and trauma. And so growing up through my life, my relationships really was a catalyst for me to self-sacrifice and self-abandon because I really didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. On the outside of myself, I had everything together. If someone asked me, how are you doing? Everything's fine. Or I would gloss over maybe the things about what was happening inside of myself, desperately unhappy. And I kind of got to this point in my life where I was really, really great at achieving. Achievement really, really gave me a lot of validation. It made me feel loved. It helped me feel seen and heard. And I really didn't know it at the time, but it was really just a part of me that was really, really good at doing things, going out in the world, being brave, being courageous, all in the goal to feel loved inside of myself. And so I hit this point in my life where I had everything in my life that society and my family and my friends told me that I should have in order for me to be happy. Right. So this was a constant thing. And my happiness and the love inside of myself was a constant thing that I was trying to achieve. So, the 6-figure job, the house, the car, the body, the way that I looked, I hit this point where I had gotten everything that, society and my friends and my family told me that I should get. but I was still so unhappy inside of myself. The relationship that I was in was very unhealthy. I was dying, mentally, physically, spiritually, kind of inside of myself. And so I hit this wall of, this doesn't make sense. And so I started to make sense of what was happening inside of me. And that's the healing work that I did, turning the mirror to myself and looking at, okay, well, what are the root causes for, why it's hard for me to speak up in relationships? What's the root causes for not really thinking that I know what I need and what I want, but not really knowing, like, is that authentically me, or is that somebody else's? Healing the root cause for why it's so hard for me to listen to my intuition, to trust myself in finding and listening to my intuition, finding the right person, not staying longer than I really should have. I don't know if you've stayed longer in relationships than you should have, but I sure have.
I think we all have.
Yeah.
At some point.
Right.
At some point.
Yeah, exactly. And so
whether it's a week or if it's 30 years,
yeah, no judgment, because it happens. And this is the stuff that people don't really talk about, right? You go to your friends and your family, they'll be like, oh, there are many fish in the sea, or, oh, just go have fun. Or you'll hear these stories about how people met their significant other on dating apps. But you inside of yourself lose hope because what you're seeing is really just trash. So this whole thing, you asked me what I do in my coaching business. And my coaching business, to put it very succinctly, is I help successful women love dating and find true love. And I help them change their experience with dating by changing their experience inside of themselves.
That sounds like a huge job.
Yes. I don't know if you have any friends or if you're dating, Theodora, but it seems that way. But it's really about re-alchemizing and transmuting the things that are happening inside of us. That's really what it's about.
What would you say the first step would be inside of us?
The first step would be admitting that you can't handle it by yourself. And that's typical, program program language. Like if anyone's familiar with AA or, anything like that, there's millions of different programs out there. But the first thing really is admitting that you actually need help. Because when that happens, you actually open up, and the universe, at least from my experience, and I've seen this 100 times, hundreds of times, is that the universe will actually conspire to bring help your way. The hard part about this and the women that I see coming to me is that they have been through a lot of stuff in their life. They've been through it. But they've also done the work to get out of it, and they've done the healing work, and just enough to realize and recognize maybe what it is that they do want, like the characteristics that they do want, the letter that they wrote to their soulmate, or the list of characteristics that they want to find in their next relationship. But there is a disconnect between what they know that they should be getting, like they know that they love themselves, but the mirror that they're seeing of the type of men that they're attracting, the frustration, the hopelessness, the confusion that they're having when they're out on dating. There's a disconnect between the clarity that they have inside of themselves and what's being presented on the outside of themselves. And a lot of that is about the energy that we're presenting, again, like it's all a mirroring process. Like if, for example, if someone has complained in their last relationship of not being seen and not being heard and not being understood, like I was that woman for decades, in the past relationship that I was in before this one that I'm in right now. The mirroring aspect to that is that there are parts of yourself inside of you that, for whatever reason, based off of what's happened to you in the past, that you're not seeing, hearing, and understanding inside of you. That's a little bit like the long process of the work that we do, is try to find those different parts inside of you that you didn't know that were there, or that you subconsciously pushed down, pushed aside, or pushed away inside of you, so that you can start to understand them and relearn how to listen to them. And what happens is that voice inside of you, that need, really starts to come forward. So like speaking up for your needs and wants and desires is a process, because in the past you haven't had really any needs and wants and desires. So it's a process of learning what they are and then learning how to talk about them with confidence and with love and with discernment, and to transcend that gap of, I want something, but how do I get it in real life?
Would you agree or disagree that people tend to have a pattern of mistakes?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely agree. A pattern to me is something that happens 3 or more times. And a pattern could be anything from, I hear this a lot. I don't know if you hear this as well, but I'm attracting emotionally unavailable men. That is a pattern. It's a pattern. Again, if you can accept that what is happening on the outside has something to do with what's happening inside of you. And again, this is with love, y'all. This is with love, because I want people to heal, not with shame and not with blame. But if you can accept enough that what's happening inside of you, the patterns that are happening, whether that be in your behaviors, whether that be in your thoughts, whether that be in your emotions, like if you're constantly, when it comes to dating, in anxiety, in overwhelm, if you haven't heard from the other person in 24, 48 hours, and that's a pattern that's happening inside of you. Again, like your thoughts, your behaviors, even your beliefs. One of the last kind of beliefs, I call it the scarcity wound, of something that I had to heal myself, was this belief that all the good men are taken. There are no good men out there. And that was really just a part of me that was protecting me from even trying, because trying in the past had led to self-abandonment, self-sacrifice, pain, hurt, all of these things. To answer your question, Theodora, yes, I believe that there are patterns out there. And I do think that and again, it could go at whatever level that you're hearing me right now, whoever's listening, that's your level of healing that is up for healing. So whether that be in your behaviors, some behaviors that I saw I thought that I could handle, but it turned out it was actually really bad for me, was like sleeping with men too quickly, and me telling myself that I was good, I was okay with it, or I could handle it, but it always ended up going bad, always. And so I started to see that pattern and really started to beat myself up about it. But it was really about a root cause reason for why I used sex and my body to fill up on love.
That being said, I have a question for you. What is too soon? What is too soon to have sex?
Good question. The thing that's frustrating probably about me and my coaching, Theodora, is I don't put out any blanket rules. Tactics don't work when it comes to healing. There's no tip, trick, strategy, or hack that really is going to help you find love. Too soon, in my opinion, is the minute that you start self-sacrificing yourself, is the minute that you push down, push away, or push aside parts of you that really want to be seen and loved and understood and felt. That's too soon. So many times, I will say that many times, because I've been doing this work for so long and I've gone through this myself, is many times sex confuses things, especially at the beginning of a relationship. Confuses on the emotional level. I'm not a doctor, I'm a coach, but also confuses on the hormonal level for women. It's almost like a drug. Our body will, the oxytocin, the serotonin, all of the things that happen. It gets very confusing for our bodies if we do this early in a relationship where we don't know the person. What this healing work for me is about finding space inside of myself and helping women find space inside of themselves so that their higher self is actually leading their dating process, right? So parts of them, wounded parts of them, aren't leading. So what that means basically is that there are different parts of us, like dieting is a great example about this. Like I know about dieting. I've been through dieting decades of my life, right? And there was always a part of me that wanted a carrot because that part was really on board with my goals. But then there was another part of me that wanted ice cream. And so these parts were fighting inside of myself. This is what quote unquote willpower is, basically. These parts of me were fighting inside of myself about, I want the carrot. I want the ice cream. Each one had different agendas. And it's very similar when it comes to dating. Like if you're seeing yourself, like you're not broken, if you're seeing yourself that, self-sacrificing, self-abandoning, not feeling great about the whole dating process, going through the delete and download cycle on the apps. But really what it is it's not you, it's just a part of you, a wounded part of you that is leading your dating process. And that part of you is screaming for you to heal it.
Have you heard of Steve Harvey's book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man?
I have heard of it, although I've not read it. Tell me more.
Steve Harvey suggests that we should not sleep with anyone, not have sex until after 90 days. It's like an employer trying to figure out if the employee is worth keeping. You don't have any benefits the first 90 days. Pretty much as a probationary period. All right?
That makes sense to me.
He suggests 90 days because during that time, you'll find out if the person keeps their word.
Yep.
If they're on time.
Yep.
How they treat you, how they treat others. You'll see a lot during the 90 days. And then you can decide if you give them the benefit of you.
I love it. I love it. I do say, like I said, the minute that we start doing things that are quote unquote self-sabotaging, which is really not even a thing. Self-sabotaging is actually a self-protective mechanism. But the minute that we start doing that, I think that's when it's too soon. Because I do see, like for me, for example, one of the things that I vowed to myself was that I was not going to give someone my body until he had committed to me. And I stood by that. That was a rule that I made and a vow that I made to myself. So what's great about, that's a great start. 90 days is a great start. But I also just want to say that it is very kind of subjective and personalized based off of who you are. What do you want? What have you seen in the past that you want to see differently? And this is hard for like the women empowerment movement, I think, because sex sometimes is used as this way that it's advertised, like on Instagram, that we kind of express ourselves, that we have the power, that we, that we shouldn't deny ourselves. And I'm not saying that, but I'm saying when you get to the point of it becoming a behavior that is actually more negative, I guess, than positive, then that's when we have to change inside of ourselves. And when all of these things happen inside of our body, when we start to attach to someone, whether you want to recognize it or not, whether you think that you can handle it, like hormonally, there are things that you cannot control, And when that happens, and what Steve Harvey's saying, I'll throw in a little bit of neuroscience, is that we start to make these attachments to people. And a lot of times, if you've seen anxiety and overwhelm and overthinking in your dating process, or if you've seen kind of this push-pull thing happening, like I want this, but I don't want this, or just a lot of clarity and dis-ease inside of yourself, then we literally, if we're in this state of either, high anxiety or like low kind of avoidance or depression, we literally do not have access to our prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is where we make our decisions, which is what Steve Harvey is saying. In order to give someone space, in order to allow them to have hard conversations, to mess up, to see if they, like he says, see if they show up on time. It's actually neuroscience what he's talking about, because if we're in a state of fight or flight, if we're in a state of detachment, depression, disconnection inside of ourselves and with others, then we do not have access to these decision-making capabilities. And so that's where the parts of ourselves start to step up and they start to lead our dating process, the wounded parts of us, it's all kind of mixed. It gets a little bit crazy inside of our body, even though, it may not seem as crazy, if you're in it, right? Because you can handle it, you can manage it, all of those things. But that's really what happens inside of us.
Have you been wanting to ride your broom like you stole it, rather than hiding in the shadows? Theodora Pendragon is here to help your magic shine, whether you want to show the world your subtle sparkle, or you really want to light your fire. Visit Theodora's online store at witchcasting.shop. That's witchcasting.shop. Remember, there's never been a better time to be a witch.
You mentioned commitment, and commitment means different things to different people. Can you give us an example of what you meant by you need the person to be committed to you first?
Yeah, and this again, I just want to restate that this was a vow I made to myself. So when I work with women through this healing process and through this program and this process and this system that I've had for years now, we get to a point where we create vows to themselves in order to remain spacious inside of themselves, calm, in order to give themselves the place for reflection and connection that Steve Harvey's talking about. For me, this in my process, what it meant was I need a monogamous commitment as a partner, as a boyfriend, a partner, whatever word you want to use. And what that entailed was, different agreements, which is a whole other, conversation about how everyone's like, well, this is what happened to me was, oh, I did really good at calling this amazing man in, most amazing man I've ever met in my life. And now I don't know what to do when he gets here. That's a whole other, that's a whole other.
It's too good to be true.
Right? Oh my gosh, girl. That's a whole other coaching, thing. But for me, the commitment was a monogamous commitment. One of our biggest agreements was it still is actually, is to speak up when something's happening inside of ourselves instead of pushing it down. We want to know what's happening. So that's what it was for me. And again, like I take women through that process of vowing to themselves how to remain authentic, how to remain loving, how to remain in her highest self. And what happens is those vows really bump up against a lot of the healing work that woman is up and called to do, right? Because the healing work is this disconnect between, I know what I want, I know that I should love myself better, but my actions, thoughts, and behaviors are not lining up with that. And that's the gap normally.
You probably have heard of don't chase, attract. So in order to attract, we need to create magnetic energy. Can you simplify that process in just a few sentences?
It's a hard one to simplify. The simple way that I can describe creating magnetic energy in your life is, for me, it's being who I am most of the time. Easy in words, very difficult in actions and behaviors. One of the most beautiful stories that I can relate to this was something that happened in my healing journey with the partner that I'm currently in it with right now. Is I had been talking about magnetic energy inside of myself and with my clients for a while. And that feeling of you meet someone and their presence is kind of overwhelmingly like warm, discerning, like as a woman. It's not necessarily her outside beauty that is attractive, but it's it's the inner knowing inside of herself. It's the words behind, or the energy behind her words, the way she holds herself and her body, the way that she communicates what it is that she wants, what it is that she doesn't want. And it's kind of okay either way, whether she quote unquote gets it or doesn't. That's the magnetic energy that I had seen before in other women, but I definitely never felt that way. Most of the time in my life, I've felt like I've needed to subconsciously or consciously felt like that I've needed to perform and be someone else, make people laugh, be sexy, be funny. And as cheesy as it sounds, for me, my magnetic energy is love. It's a frequency of love that I've alchemized inside of myself so that being who I am was more important than what I do. For whatever that is for the woman that comes to me, it doesn't have to be love. It could be something else like a word. A word is just a signpost. But this feeling of serenity and calmness, connection, curiosity inside of herself, so that most of the time when she's out in the world, in the dating world, maybe in particular, is that people are attracted to who she is rather than what she does.
So people are attracted to authenticity.
Yeah, I would say so. That's a hard one for me because I think authenticity in the coaching space or on Instagram or wherever you get podcast books, wherever you get your knowledge from, is a little bit played out. Because I think that there is a part of us, especially if we've done our healing work, done our personal development work, that can play at being authentic, but really isn't authentic. That's a hard one. But it's very hard to describe simply because it's a feeling for me. It's like going out in the world and feeling safe inside of yourself amongst the chaos, amongst the craziness. And then what tends to happen is, just like everything in healing, the mirror of what happens on the outside, the attraction piece, it mirrors what's happening inside of you. And that's why the inner work is so important.
For the listeners, what advice can you give them today to begin their journey creating their magnetic energy?
The best advice that I have is, if you are seeing patterns that you don't like, whether that be in your current relationship, like you're noticing that yourself not speaking up about things, if you're noticing patterns in your dating life, whether that be anxiety, overwhelm, attracting maybe like lower level people than you quote unquote want based off of the work that you've done, the dream, the letter that you wrote to your dream partner, the characteristics that you wrote out. If there's a pattern that you're seeing, the piece of awareness and the advice that I have for you is that just realize that your patterns are not you. You are not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to be hopeless. It's harder than a mindset shift or sometimes even, the therapy that you're in. What we really, really need to understand is that your patterns are not you. They are just a part of you that is screaming for you to heal.
And we can change all that.
We can. We absolutely, if I can do it, y'all, if I can do it, you can do it. I always say to myself, I should be in jail or dead based off of my patterns in the past. I am dead serious based off of the way that my behaviors, the situations that I've found myself in because of my trauma, my wounds. If I can do it, anyone can do it. We just have to let ourselves realize that maybe we cannot. Hyper independence is a trauma response. And so we have to realize that maybe we don't have all the answers. Maybe that there is a way for me, a safe way for me to look inside of myself, to be facilitated in looking inside of myself so this healing work can happen, so I can get the love that I know that I deserve in life.
Can you tell us what services you provide and where we can find you online?
Yeah. Thank you so much for all these wonderful questions, Theodora. My invitation is for anyone that's listening, whether you are actively dating, whether you're not dating, whether you're on a break, whether you're in a relationship, and you want to learn a little bit more about yourself, is to go to datingarchetype.com. There you can take the feminine dating archetype quiz. So you will fit into one of 4 feminine dating archetypes. And it takes 2 minutes. It will reveal your blocks to love and help you find your true love match. And you can find all of my socials and my website from that page.
That sounds so magical.
Thank you.
That's true love alchemy, right? First of all, starting with yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've walked this path as well. Yeah, 100%.
Is there anything else you would like to add before we sign off?
Thank you, Theodora. I feel complete. I really, really appreciate this space. And thank you so much for the amazing conversation.
And thank you for being a part of my podcast.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for Witchcasting with Theodora Pendragon. Have a burning question or have a topic you'd love Theodora and her guests to discuss on the show? Contact her through Instagram at Theodora Pendragon. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And help us spread the word by leaving us a rating and review and sharing it with your friends. See you next time, and may your magic always shine.